Yeah, okay. Okay.
Steve's coming.
Oh, all right. All set? Steve's just coming in. I'll call the Thursday, June 27th, 2024 meeting of the Cumberland Planning Board to order. Roll call. Ms. Rashich.
Here.
Mr. McDonald.
Here.
Mr. Butler.
Here.
Mr. Scown.
Here.
Mr. Bush.
Here.
Mr. Costa.
Here.
And Mr. D'Ambrosia.
Here.
And the chair's present. Absent at the moment is Ms. Reese. Approval of the planning board minutes of May 30th, 2024. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions? And if not, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler, seconded by Ms. Rashich. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The next item of business is the director's report. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of you have met Abby McVery. She's our new principal planner. She recently graduated from UConn with a master's in public administration. She just joined the planning department last week, but she's really hit the ground running and taken on a lot of difficult and challenging assignments already. So I know she's going to have great success and a planner, and I'm very excited she's joined our team.
And welcome. We'll have a fun time. Okay, the director, right, okay. Item number 4, public meeting. Pre-application, major land development comprehensive permit, project name Haley's Commons, owner applicant Haley's LLC, location 75 Manville Hill Road, assessors plat 54, lots 7 and 8. Zoning is R1 with public water and sewer. The applicant proposes to build 10 condominiums, 3 of which would be affordable. The existing building would be converted into 2 units. New construction includes 1 2-unit building and 2 3-unit buildings. No action will be taken tonight on this item. Mr. Modica.
Thank you. Right, as you said, Mr. Chair, we're just going to have a discussion here, no action on this item. Some background. The applicant reached out to the planning department regarding this project last year, and they went before the technical review committee in October with the same proposal, and there are no major issues raised at that time. But as you know, since then, the regulatory landscape has changed, specifically as it relates to comprehensive permits. As we discussed at a previous meeting, we discussed the relationship between density bonuses and the affordable housing percentage. Here, the applicant's proposing 10 units, 3 of which would be affordable. And if you look on table 1 in your packet, you'll see there's a sliding scale based on the new legislation regarding increases in the affordable percentage, leading to increases in the density bonus. Tonight, I also left you another table here that compares this proposal with others previously approved by this board in terms of affordable percentage and density bonus. So within this framework, this project's on the higher end of a density bonus and the lower end of affordable percentage. But I think there's a couple things we need to keep in mind. The new legislation regarding the required density bonuses, these, they're not rules. These are just guidelines. I'm not a developer, but my understanding is you need an economy of scale if you want to create 100% affordable project, and that threshold depends on a lot of economic factors, but there's only the larger projects that can really pencil out as 100% affordable. So for a relatively small project like this, there are some market rate units are needed to offset the cost. So where that sweet spot is between the affordable percentage and the density bonus, I don't have an answer to that now, but since this is new legislation the board's going to be dealing with moving forward, it's important to start having that discussion here. One other factor to keep in mind, if the applicant is proposing more density maybe that the board has an appetite for. There are potential other offsets the applicant can provide. For example, a dedication of open space would be an example, maybe not in this particular instance. Preserving a historic house could lead to greater density bonuses. Here, there may be an opportunity along Manville Hill Road where RIDOT owns a large portion of the parking lot. There's about 6,000 square feet. This could be an adopt-a spot where the applicant develops and maintains a landscape buffer here to make the area more attractive. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Board, have any questions for Mr. Modica? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Attorney John Shikachi for the applicant. And to my left is Ed Pimentel. He'd be testifying as a land use expert. I know you're familiar with him. He's been before this board on many previous occasions. As Glenn stated, we're only here at pre-app, more or less to get the board's feelings and get some guidance on what we're going to design going forward. And we think it's a very reasonable plan. And we're taking a non-conforming restaurant that's been vacant for many years and trying to develop the site to something that we think can help with the affordability requirements under the statute for your town, and something that works for us economically as well. As I'm sure you know, the main factor is to balance the site under the statute, the old statute, and continues on with the new statute for health, safety, welfare. No specific rules, as Glenn has mentioned, but if you can make something work from a land use point of view that Mr. Pimentel will testify to, and more importantly, from an engineering point of view, as Mr. Carlson from Insight will testify, to make sure that we meet all the drainage and we have proper sewer capacity and water capacity, and that the traffic patterns won't create any problems for danger or turning patterns. It's something that's very reasonable and hopefully you consider. So at this time, I'm going to have Mr. Pimentel tell us a little bit about his involvement with the site, what he has examined and feels the comprehensive plan calls for in this area, and how we meet those objectives and goals.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Board. I've actually been involved with this property for several years now. The prior owners who owned the pub had sought out legal counsel and myself as to what they could do with the property. We explored a zone change because it is a non-conforming use to allow an intensification. We explored mixed use. It's been a long-standing commercial use. I mean, it still has grandfathered rights, but obviously, given the surrounding character, residential character, and in fact, directly across this to the side street, there's another multifamily. We felt this would be more appropriate. And if you think about it, it's really the transition property to where you get more higher density, as evidenced by the adjoining development, and then further down. And I did do a neighborhood analysis, which is in my report, which I believe has already been presented to the board, even though we're only at pre-app. So what are the unique aspects of this property? I have done, I don't know, about a half a dozen or a dozen affordable housing projects in this community now. And I've come to fully understand what the objective of this community is. We've got areas that we want to preserve, right, in their natural state. We've got areas with lack of infrastructure. This community has been pushing for affordable housing, but do it in a manner that's tasteful and do it in a manner that takes advantage of infill development. So the last several projects I've been before this board, at the Ann and Hope refill, remodel, the property up on Mendon Road where we got rid of those commercial uses as well that were not viable. Joe Almeida's other property that there was always 2 units there, no one was aware. Infill development. And so when they asked me, what do you think is going to be the most appropriate? I said, this is a perfect site for it. The property is already severely disturbed. The property has unlimited curb cuts onto a state road and a side road. There is no drainage controls out there whatsoever that's even aware of. These are all things that are going to be realized as an improvement. And what are we doing? We're bringing the property into a conformance with its residential designation. It's going to provide much needed housing and, more important, affordable housing. The new state statute that was brought up, the reason why that was done is because many communities use zoning as a basis for a denial of affordable housing. We know that when you ask for the waivers, now they're called adjustments, you're supposed to balance your zoning with your goals and objectives, but many communities don't care. So what the state did here was say, you know what, we're going to establish a threshold that's going to accomplish two things. This threshold is going to do, on the larger properties, a by right number that you can go in, and on the smaller ones, we're already going to start that threshold at a higher level. So it's not just the base zoning, we're already going to give you a density bonus above that, that's mandatory, and then evidence why from that number, the number's inappropriate. Because we would be starting at a 0, 1, 2, and people are saying, oh, you're building 10 units, but we're really at the by right 5 units going to 10, and we believe it's appropriate given everything I've just mentioned, the non-conforming use of the property. The property's already been severely constrained by this commercial use. We're going to make vast improvements on this property, and because of the 10 units, you're going to realize 3 affordable. If we come in with a smaller number, all we're doing is we're going to utilize the entire premises and its resources, and this community will never move the needle one iota. And this community's been doing really good job at moving that needle towards 10% compliance. We think 10 is the sweet spot number that's appropriate for the property, and given the cost that it's going to take to make all these improvements on the property, obviously there's an economic feasibility component. So we're looking also from guidance from this board, but we do believe we've worked around with different numbers on this property and with the guidance of the engineer, and we really believe 10 is very appropriate for the site and realizing 3 affordable. So we're approaching 33% rather than the minimal 25% on the property. So I don't know if you have any questions. I mean, obviously at prelim, we'll get a little bit more, but.
Board, have any questions for Mr. Pimentel? Mr. Butler?
I don't know if it's Mr. Pimentel or Mr. Shikarchi. I just had 2 questions. One is, what's the thinking around how long the deed restriction would be on the affordable units as far as the number of years?
Yeah. I can pull it out, but I believe the letter of eligibility says 99 years.
99, perfect. The only other question I had was, in the Rhode Island housing letter, it says that the maximum price on the 2-bedroom affordable is $300,000. So I'm just wondering what, I know you can't give a specific number, but is there a rough estimate of what a market rate unit would be as opposed to the affordable?
Yeah, I'm going to think probably a little bit above 400,000.
How much?
I'm assuming around 400,000
400?
based on the proposed units he's thinking of.
Mr. Chairman, just to add to that, so it's going to be for sale?
Yes.
So it has to be 120, or it can be up to 120% of AMI as opposed to rentals, which can only go up to 80% of AMI.
In through experience of other developers I've dealt with, that number could change. It's based on a fixed rate with the,
There's a formula in here based on the interest rate, and so yeah, I imagine once it gets built, it'll have to be a whole new calculation. I just
Depending on the
was
timing.
curious because 300,000 seems high. Again, I always say this, I think we need another name besides affordable housing. That's my own opinion, but I mean, 300,000 seemed high, and so I thought, well, how much is the market rate? But, 400,000 for a 2 or 3 bedroom, I guess, is in this market is reasonable, but, so I was just curious. Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions?
Are you planning on 2 or 3 bedroom units? Do you know yet?
you haven't cemented that yet? That's still in the process.
And Mr. Chairman, just again to add to that, the new state law prohibits towns from restricting the number of bedrooms under 3. So you could say no 4s, but you cannot say no 3 bedrooms.
One thing I can offer that, whatever the end product is, an equal amount of the affordables have to match that. So for example, if there's X number of 2s, we have to provide a sufficient percentage of the same as number 2s. If you offer 3s, you got to offer it also because you can't discriminate between the affordable and the market rate. So we will be reaching out to the groups, both market and affordable rate, because that is what the intent of this law is.
Any other questions?
So if there's no other further questions, Mr. Pimentel, I think it would be important to bring up the engineer. So Paul, why don't you come up? Paul Carlson from Insight Engineering. And once again, Paul, why don't you give us your involvement with the project? And more importantly, how you feel that the 10 units meets all the requirements from engineering point of view for sewer, water capacity, runoff, parking calculations, and drainage.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Paul Carlson of Insight Engineering Services. Our involvement in this project is inclusive of the utilities, site development, and access into the site. As we looked at the number of units that are proposed, this particular property does or can handle, number one, the number of units, the parking requirements for all of the units, which are become a centralized parking around or inside of each of the units. Curb cut access actually is out onto Fountain Street versus out onto Manville Hill Road. And then all of the utilities would be accessible to this particular property and have sufficient capacity for all of the particular units. And as was mentioned earlier, this particular site has no drainage or stormwater measures that are on this. And this proposal would include all of those measures to handle majority on site and also meet all of the DEM regulations. So.
Board have any questions? Since you brought up drainage, and it's kind of a little earlier, premature, but what kind of drainage systems are you thinking about?
There'll probably be a multitude of different stormwater measures. Most of it will be underground infiltration systems. Again, a lot of this will get into as far as the preliminary as test pits and soil evaluations come involved, but majority of this would probably be underground in order to meet those regulations. Again, we're only looking to balance what is pre and post, but understanding that all of it goes off-site, there will be definitely some measures to handle that stormwater on site too.
Mr. Ambrosia.
And looking at the, what document is this? The Technical Review Committee meeting minutes. Glenn had brought up a question about parking. So there's some units that have garages, but the parking lot is providing 20 parking spaces. Seems a little bit maybe overkill. Is there any way to bring that down to reduce the imperviousness? To ask Glenn's question from the review?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to whatever recommendations and ideas that the board has, but of course we can. More than happy to do that. We can lower it if that's a concern.
Yeah, especially with the new regulations with their, not requiring so many spaces. 20 seems a little more than needed.
Certainly the site has the capacity, as we were trying to show, is that it can meet all of the regulations plus, so we can always work backwards from those. So.
Yeah, might be more appealing to have
Sure.
not have a parking lot in the middle of all the houses.
So what you're saying is basically the 20, how you arrived at that number is just kind of what it has for area for parking.
That's the majority of it, but also looking at the number of units, bedrooms, just making sure that we can meet those numbers, and then we'll work our way back from there. So.
Any other questions?
Some for visitors too, if someone comes in,
Well, yeah.
right, so.
Well, what I'm getting at is there is a requirement for X number of parking spaces. And if, you're looking at increasing those parking spaces, and it's a point well taken, because in some cases you can never have enough because you don't know who's going to be visiting the area, who's going to have a party or anything like that. But Mr. Ambrosia's comment as far as minimizing the impervious area, it's a point well taken also.
Point well taken.
Any other questions?
So, Mr. Chairman, as you know, at a pre-app, we're just looking for some guidance, unless the plan shocks your conscience, we'll continue on, and we know there's no guarantees, and it's at our own risk, but just want to get a general feel if it's something that looks palatable to you.
Ms. Bush?
Oh, yes, it does. I think it's probably the right use of the site, and especially if you can make some landscaping improvements to
Okay.
beautify the area, too.
Landscaping, is obviously, you look at the photos here, there's not much of anything on the site. So, yeah, landscaping would certainly be
Okay?
an improvement, and it would also add to the attractiveness of the project.
Great. And obviously, the parking will reduce that accordingly. And,
And it's a point that Mr. Rosa had made, but it's what you feel would be, a good number to arrive at.
so we'll do a balancing act to make sure that it's not too much, but yet enough in case any guests come, but we'll keep that in mind when we continue on with the design.
One of the situations you're talking about, you said you didn't know whether it'd be 2 or 3 bedrooms. So, I mean, you're gonna have 3-bedroom units, I would think you're gonna need that.
A little more parking, right?
I understand Mr. Brosier's comments, and I think that's important too, but you gotta be realistic when it comes to 3-bedroom units. You're probably gonna need more parking.
Well,
Good point.
Isn't
Thank you.
there a criteria for how many parking spaces you would need for like a 3-bedroom unit?
I mean, traditionally, we have like 2 parking spots per unit, but sometimes 3. But we'll fine tune the design and the bedroom amount and plan accordingly for your next level review.
Or some calculations have come out, 2.5, and you say, how can you get 2.5 spaces?
Unless we get a real small car.
If you double 2.5, you get an extra, it's 1 extra space, that's how the calculation works, so. That's, whatever that criteria is, it's some of those lines anyway. Mr. Butler?
For my part, I'm supportive of the project and the application. I'm still struggling, and I think it's just something I have to get my head around, not in this project specifically, but the whole issue of the density bonuses. And I know this is all new, and I don't think anyone understands it completely. But this is the second application we've looked at now where the applicant's requesting 100% density bonus, and in return, we're getting close to the minimum affordability. The other project was much larger, and I think there was a lot more opportunities to create more affordable housing. I understand the scope of this project and the economics of it, and I appreciate Mr. Modica's comments about finding creative ways to work with applicants to find other concessions to offset some of the density. But just as a general commentary, I really think this is something that the legislature really needs to revisit and look at again, because I don't see how we're just pushing ourselves further and further away from 10% when this was supposed to get us closer and closer to 10%. So you're adding 7 market rate and 3 affordable. That doesn't get us anywhere closer to 10%. We get 3 units, which is, I guess, great, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And my other concern, again, not about this project specifically, but more in general, is if we're repeatedly saying to applicants, yeah, we'll give you 100% density as long as you give us 25, 30, 35% affordable. Even if somebody could afford to do 100% affordable, why would you if you can get away with just doing 25 or 30%? That's not, Mr. Menard's issue. And again, I don't have a specific issue with this application, but it is something that I get the sense that a lot of communities are struggling with. And I guess we all just kind of have to work through. But I guess I would feel more comfortable if we did have some formula in place or some strategy in place that as applicants come before us, we can be consistent in why and how we're making decisions and clearly be clear about what the benefit is to the town if we're not going to get closer to 10%, but we did get these other benefits. Cleaning up the property, making it more attractive, whatever the issues are. So that's just my commentary, but again, I'm supportive of the project in general. So.
Thank you.
Point well taken, I agree, Mr. Butler, and that's what this board and many other boards are struggling with, are those numbers. How do we make it work? But I agree with you. I think it's a dilemma, and I think that this board and all the other boards around the state are struggling with that same question. Is how do we find that, happy medium, I guess you could call it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And that's what Glenn and I have talked about, is that from a legal perspective, from my perspective, I would say that you really do have to come up with some kind of strategy. And it doesn't have to be just a formula. It can be, what they're providing, like landscaping, or they're meeting most of the dimensional requirements, or it doesn't have to be just about density. But with regard to the legislation, my understanding is that the housing advocacy groups wanted to add those triggers for 50% and 100% to encourage more affordable units, but that's not what's going to happen. So, and I would say that, 30, what are you proposing, 30%?
I think
30%
33.
does add, it might be this much, but it does add to our affordables. As long as you're not adding 10 or less, you're adding, if that's worth anything.
Mr. McDonough?
Are you saying that you and Mr. Modica are thinking of fashioning some type of criteria that we would use as a board?
I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that's what I've suggested that he should do. I'm not the policymaker, and you should be involved in that, because I think going forward, we always try to be consistent with review of all of the applications, right? So you want to treat everybody the same way. So if you could come up with something that's somewhat objective, you're not going to get to 100% objective, I doubt, but if you could come up with something where, we're not just like putting in 100% more than what's allowed on any lot that doesn't work, it makes sense to come up with something. And I'm not sure what that is, but we can certainly talk about that. When do you think you're going to have an application ready?
Well, it comes down a little bit to, that's probably a better answer to Paul. The new twist with the statute is
Right.
you do a lot more engineering now.
Yeah.
And skip the.
That's why we do pre-apps.
Skip the traditional master. Pre-app, we never heard of, we never used to use pre-apps. Now they're becoming very important because you got to get a feel for what's going on before you expend a lot of money, time, and energy. Almost skip master and go to preliminary. So that's a better question for Paul. I'm going to think, Paul, you need 2-3 months to start getting some of the drainage calculations done and things of that nature.
Because I think, just to be very clear about this, Mr. Menard came to Glenn last year. And at that time, we didn't have this formula. And I think, I don't want to speak for him, but I think at that time, it was like, yeah, I mean, it kind of fits, right? But then you get this criteria in, and you want to make sure that we're not doing, we're not having other applicants coming in saying, well, I want 100% more density, even though my lot is tiny. I mean, it's, you have to get up, Ed.
I'll cut off Ed for a second. When I talked to some of the policymakers who created this law, I brought that up, and they tell me that they purposely left it like that because they want the boards to have more power. I don't know. To make that decision.
Yeah, so I think that's why you got to do it on a case-by-case basis, right? When we came forward to this board with Mr. Almeida's property, right, the 6 units had been there, but they weren't legitimately recognized, but they had been there operating. It made sense. The lot was small, but it made sense. Infill, right? The parking was already there. I think it's the same thing. You're looking at a parcel that was used in a non-conforming manner historically, and we want to see it go residential. Here's an opportunity. It's already disturbed. We're going to correct some of those long pre-existing disturbances. We can make improvements on drainage and landscaping, things that are not going to be realized. I think that's some of the trade-offs here. So you got to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Well, what I guess the consensus is, and Mr. Butler, it's like thinking out of the box as far as benefits, and what those benefits could be. And I don't know if anyone in this board has any idea what those benefits could be, but nevertheless, it's something that should be.
Well, that's our job to find some on your next plan for you. Maybe there'll be extra landscaping to beautify the area. and better drainage and less impervious material.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a good feel for the process and where the town's going with it, and we'll continue on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Typically, in a pre-app, we don't really ask for input from the audience. But, right, but typically we don't, but, you know, in situations like this, I think, you know, it's a good idea to solicit if there's anyone here in the audience that has any questions, comments, input they'd like to give us regarding this application. Please come to the podium and give us your name and address for the record, if you've got any kind of questions whatsoever. Oh, okay, see, I see there's nobody here that has any questions regarding this application, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
see if there's anyone on Zoom.
Yes, please.
If you'd like to speak to this item, click the raise hand icon at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is Town Council recommendation, ordinance number 24-10. Project name proposed duplex, owner applicant J.M. and Sons Properties LLC, location 28 Vivian Avenue, Assessors Plat 53, Lot 55, zoning R1 with public water and sewer. The applicant requests a rezoning of the subject property from R1 to R2. This item was continued from the May 30th, 2024 planning board meeting. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this rezone request is pretty clear cut. The applicant would like to upzone the property from R1 single family to R2 two family. The only legal way to do that is through the comprehensive permit by making one of the two units affordable. Our comprehensive plan is very clear on the circumstances to allow greater residential density. Throughout the plan, it states that greater density is only for creating affordable housing or housing for seniors or the disabled. This request meets none of those criteria. And because the rezone is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, it is considered spot zoning. The surrounding neighborhood is solidly single family, so it's not the case here where a two-family would fit in with the general character of the neighborhood. For the 5 years that I've been here, anyone who asked to rezone a property to put in more units, what everyone is told, the only way you do it is through the comprehensive permit process. And this application is no different. We've talked about the need to create more affordable housing, especially affordable housing, and we need to do that with a holistic town-wide strategy to create more housing. Not like this application on a lot-by-lot basis for the benefit of only one owner. So because this proposed ordinance is not consistent with the comprehensive plan, the planning department recommends forwarding a recommendation to the town council to deny ordinance number 2410.
Board have any questions for Mr. Modica?
All right, thank you.
Mr. Modica. Can I hear from the applicant, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having me. My name is Charles Redahan. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Rhode Island, practicing for Kieran Plunkett and Redahan, whose office is located in Providence. I'm here this evening representing the petitioner, J.M. and Sons Properties, LLC. The petition before you this evening, as Mr. Modica alluded to, is to amend the zoning designation of 28 Vivian Avenue, more specifically described as Cumberland Tax Assessors Plat 53, Lot 55, from its present zoning designation of R1 residential to R2 residential. The applicant is seeking a favorable recommendation from the planning board to the town council. At present, as we discussed at the previous meeting, 28 Vivian Avenue is an undeveloped lot, contains no structures, and petitioner is seeking to construct a two-story, two-family lot on the property. Each home will consist of a single-car garage with separate entrances for each unit. The applicant of note intends to revise its site plan to decrease the size of the proposed structure by 1 foot. This would allow for a 5-foot setback that would, as referenced in Mr. Modica's report, not require a variance from the zoning board of review. As noted in the staff report, the vacant lot is located to the west of another 3-unit residence located at 20 Vivian Avenue. Moreover, there's a multifamily residence located at 24 Grand Avenue. Grand Avenue, is, I'm sure we're all well aware by now, is a public roadway that is parallel to Vivian Avenue. The planning department clearly has expressed strong concerns with this petition, and has characterized it as spot zoning. We would respectfully disagree with this contention. While the zoning map presents a picture of a heavily residential neighborhood, in reality, there are a number of properties on Grand Avenue, some of which will be addressed later this evening, and on Mendon Road, which reside in a residential zone, but exist as pre-existing, non-conforming, and clearly have commercial uses. Additionally, there are a number of multifamily homes in this neighborhood, in this area. Accordingly, the ratio of single-family homes to multifamily residents referenced in the report in this neighborhood and in the town at large is not as drastic when you consider that there are a number of properties not only in this neighborhood but throughout town that are in areas zoned R1 that are existing as commercial properties or otherwise not conforming to the R1 designation. While the lot deficiency as to minimum lot requirement is notable, the unit per square foot ratio, as referenced in the staff report, is comparable to the property next door, the triple decker on 20 Vivian Avenue, which is 3 units, just under 7,500 square feet. This would be 2 units for just under 5,000 square feet. So the ratio of units per square feet would actually be higher, albeit slightly, when compared with the multifamily unit next door. The addition of this 2-family unit would obviously help the town's housing stock. While R1 properties, residential properties, are the most ubiquitous in Cumberland, this figure, as I mentioned before, is inflated by the fact that there are a number of properties that are pre-existing non-conforming, despite multiple rezones and despite decades of commercial or other non-R1 use. In addressing the department's concern of opening up R1 properties to rezoning, the applicant ardently states that the subject property is unique in its location in the area of town that has both multiple multifamily units as well as a commercial pocket, as I'm sure we'll describe or speak about in detail later this evening. The addition of a multifamily unit would help this transition from the commercial aspects to the surrounding residential neighborhood. In each subsequent petition for a rezone from R1 to R2, we'll have to consider the subjective qualities of the proposed lot and the surrounding neighborhood. A decision on a petition similar to this one must consider the current makeup of that neighborhood, the character of that neighborhood, particularly if that character is markedly different than what you would see on the zoning map. And I would last say that as to the affordable housing component of this, respectfully, the applicant is putting forward 2 residential units. This is not St. Patrick's or the Ann and Hope or even Haley's Commons. It's 2 units, and for reasons that I were discussed in length at the prior meeting. That is not an avenue that we'd like to take. With me this evening is the applicant. We've prepared a brief presentation, mostly consisting of photographs to demonstrate a lot of the points that I've outlined. I've joined the Zoom meeting. I'm not sure if I can share my screen. That might be the easiest way to effectuate that.
Brian Cody, 25 Grand Ave, JB Cody Construction, and JM and Sons, B&J Grand, that whole area. So this is 28 Vivian. So we moved our business, JB Cody Construction, from Lincoln to Cumberland in 2019. We purchased 2 separate automotive repair sales facilities on Grand Ave. We've taken out a total of 5 permits with the town to renovate the properties. We plan on, we went to the planning department 3/20/23 to put an apartment over the garage on Grand Ave. We believe, the reason for this was to push affordable housing, as it was more than 1 unit. That shouldn't even be in there, sorry. So please just remember, all the properties are separate now. They were originally all put together. Now they're all separated as separate petitions. So this is only for 28 Vivian. Town benefits. In 2023, our corporations have paid $24,263.08 in taxes. That includes the fire tax of all the taxes of the properties that we own in that area. We receive no trash pickup, so the town doesn't have to put up a lot of money. With the approval of the 4 petitions before you, the tax paid to the town would significantly increase, as 2 of the properties are currently vacant lots. This also does not include any taxes that TAC Auto or the other businesses that lease the properties would pay to the town. Converting 2 undeveloped lots to create more housing and job opportunities in Cumberland is what we're trying to do. So this is 28 Vivian Ave. This is the proposed R2. The property at 28 Vivian Ave remains an empty lot. We are asking to construct a 2-story duplex on the property. In order to do so, we'd have to have a zone change from R1 to R2, which would allow a multifamily. The picture has been painted of a solid R1 neighborhood while on paper. According to the zoning map, this is true. Let's take a look at what the actual uses of the R1 zone lots are. So this is the plan of the duplex. That's what the front of the duplex would look like. So basically 2 garages. Each unit would be a 3-bedroom. And we, as Charles spoke about, we put the setback off the back lot to 5 feet to meet the town setback. This fits great in the neighborhood. The building is designed to be a screen from Vivian to the commercial property on Governor. We could put an up and down 2-story duplex, but this fits better on the lot and also looks better. So this is the existing zoning map on the left that shows everything R1 with the exception of the gas station and across the street from the gas station off 99, which is C1. On the right is actually the uses of the properties in that neighborhood. So there's, if you look here, there's a two-family, a two-family, two-family. On the corner of Vivian and Mendon Road is actually a commercial property. It's auto sales. Here's where our property is. Next door is a three-family. And then behind that, that whole row is being used as commercial. Part of it's my property, Lepore's, and Maria's. On the other side of the street is also commercial with another three-family. There's mixed use on Mendon Road, mixed use across from Mendon Road. The two-family across the street from Mendon Road. There's a five-family and three other two-families, all in this area. This is an aerial view of our property. So this is where we're planning on trying to put the duplex. As you can see, right next door is the three-family. There are several two-families in that area. This is 25 Grand Ave behind the building. As you can see, 25 Grand Ave, there's another building that abuts the back of the duplex. This just shows that this property is very, very dense with multifamilies and commercial properties. This is not just strictly an R1 zone. So this is a list of multifamily properties that are in that area. 15 Biltmore Ave is a two-family, 11,000 square feet, 7.7 units per acre. 30 Week Street is a two-family, 10,000 square foot lot, 8.7 units per acre. 10 Week Street is a two-family on a smaller lot than mine, which is only 4,791 square feet, and they're at 18.2 units per acre. We are currently at 17.4 units per acre. 3830 Mendon Road is a two-family, 16,000 square feet. They're at 5.4 units, and so on and so forth. As you can see, there's many multifamilies. The ones that are highlighted are more dense units per acre than what we're trying to accomplish. So 24 Grand Ave, that is the next street over from Vivian. There's a three-family there on a 7,405 square foot lot. That's 17.6 units per acre. There's also a five-family on Mendon Road that's sitting on an 8,710 square foot lot. That's 25 units per acre. Again, we're at 17.4. The lot size of the property on Vivian is 50 by 100 or 5,000 square feet, 17.4 units per acre. You would need, to meet the 15,000 square foot lot size that you're requiring to meet the R2 zone, you would need 3 house lots. You'd need 3 single-family house lots to put up 1 duplex, which to me doesn't make any sense. You would need 3 houses. You could put up 3 single-family houses on 1 lot that you would put a duplex on. All of these properties listed show the square foot lot size. Only 2 of them out of the 12 meet the 15,000 square feet. The last meeting, we talked about precedents and opening Pandora's box with the change from R1 to R2. Every zone change is different, and every property is abutting a 3-family and a commercial property and has this many multifamily units in the same neighborhood. It shouldn't matter. Any property owner that comes to you and says they want to change the zone and has this scenario, by all means, in my opinion, they should be able to change their zone. So this is 24 Grand Ave. This is the 3-family that abuts my also 26 Grand Ave. It's on 7,405 square foot lot. It's currently 7.6 units per acre. Again, we're at 17.4. 3880 Mendon Road is a 5-family on an 8,710 square foot lot. It comes out to 25 units per acre. Again, we're at 17.4 units per acre. 10 Week Street, it's a two-family on a smaller lot. It's only 4,791 square feet. They're currently at 18.2 units per acre. Again, we're only at 17.4. This is the surrounding area. So this is the three-family that 28 Vivian abuts. This is across the street. The top left picture is across the street with all the cars. And then if you're looking across the street to the right is the commercial property, which is also car sales, which is recently sold. From this, you can see this is not spot zoning. There are several 2, 3, 5 mixed use and commercial properties in our neighborhood. If we were trying to do this in the middle of an R1 zone, that's really an R1, I understand, but I'm trying to show you that it's not an R1 zone. So this is a petition signed by 16 of our neighbors. I can pass around the original copy if you guys would like. Some of the neighbors, actually I have a map of the neighbors that actually signed versus where we are. So this is the map of people I talked to and got their signature on the approval. As you can see, 28 Vivian is right in the middle. All these neighbors are for what we're trying to do. We have one neighbor that wrote a letter in. She actually lives here. If you could see the arrow on the screen, this is where she lives. None of my employees, people come to my business, nobody drives by her house. I can't see her house from my building. She is within the 250-foot radius of notification, but other than that, I don't know who this lady is. And that's the presentation for what we have for the duplex.
Board have any questions? The dilemma that I see, and it's kind of pointed out in Mr. Orica's memo. Okay, it says anyone in Cumberland wishing to build a two-family dwelling must have 15,000 square feet of land, 10,000 square feet for the first unit, and 5,000 square feet for the second. At 5,000 square feet, this lot cannot meet the required dimensional requirements, as stated by the planning board at its May 30th, 2024 meeting. Allowing this change opens a Pandora's box. The dilemma that we have, okay, is what we have that's on the books, the laws that are in the ordinances that are on the books at this point. And it seems to me the only way we can get around it, Mr. Modica had mentioned, was to go for a comprehensive permit. I don't know if there's any other way around it. And, you know, where does that put us? And again, the point being, the Pandora's box, and once we open up the door and so on. I appreciate, okay, your position and so on. Believe me, I do, okay. And I'm just struggling with how do we get around that requirement, besides, you know, allowing for some sort of a variance or a rezone. And spot zoning, and I understand what your point is that we have existing spot zoning. Are all those units that your two-family units, are they sitting on an R1 or an R2 zone? I don't know that.
R1.
So your point is well taken, but they're still sitting in an R1 zone. So
But in all due respect, they shouldn't be. They should be rezoned.
I understand
to the
that.
correct.
And I'm not disagreeing with you on that, okay? I understand that. But a lot of these multifamily buildings were built, even that triple decker was built, I don't know, what, 50s, 30s, 20s?
Yeah, probably about 100 years ago.
Yeah, okay. And that's the question, was what was the zoning then, as opposed to what our ordinances are now? And what we have to live with is to conform with the current zoning ordinances. And I can ask Ms. Salvatore the same question, where do we go?
From a legal perspective.
Yes.
If the town council were to change this particular property, which is 5,000 square feet, to R2, they would automatically be forcing a variance. And as you know, you cannot get a variance if you're creating your own hardship. That's part of the standard. So I think that's what Glenn is struggling with, is that you're encouraging a situation that will require a variance that they can't get anyway.
And that's what I'm struggling with.
But in a comprehensive permit application, which I want to be very clear,
Yeah.
the town supports comprehensive permit applications. I think we've added, again, I'll let Glenn speak to it, but we've added tons of low and moderate income housing units to the town over the last several years under this administration, Jonathan, Glenn, we support it and we encourage it. So it's not that the unit is, it's not that the unit itself isn't appropriate. It's that, as Mr. McDonald said in the last one, you're only getting this much. Well, if you were to rezone this, not you, but if the town council were to rezone this R2, you're actually going backwards on our LMI. And we still haven't gotten to 10%, even though we're very proactive on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McDonald.
if I may, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, and with all due respect to the applicant, I think in his presentation, what we heard, at least somewhat, is a bringing up a number of non-conforming existing uses in that area. And it appears to me, again, with no disrespect, that it's using nonconformity to justify further nonconformity. I can't support, if I understand it correctly, I don't think that is the direction that we should be going.
But that's what I'm struggling with. And understanding the decisions made by the town council, not this board, okay? But my feeling is this board has to act within what its purview is as far as recommendations for the town council. They can do what they want, okay? They can overrule our recommendation, okay? And it's well within their purview, but our purview, and this is what I'm struggling with, is what we're dealing with legally. And I agree that when we talk about appropriateness, it seems reasonable, okay? But how do we get there? Well, the only way we can get there is have the town council make that decision. But I don't think this board would be doing the job it should be doing if we were to recommend that this proposal go forward as it is. Unless somebody else on the board has a different perspective, I'm willing to.
I don't have a different perspective, but like you, I'm struggling with this. And I think I expressed to Mr. Cody last month. I drove by it. I could see the duplex. I could see how it fits in the neighborhood, the three-family next door. Completely get it, completely understand it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Modica, but if one unit was market and one unit was affordable, they could do it. And we're saying because one's not affordable, you can't do it. Again, this goes back to the previous conversation of I don't understand these affordable housing laws. But that aside, I think you're right, Mr. Chairman, that ultimately it's the town council that will make this call. Our job tonight is only to tell them we've taken this application and put it against the comprehensive plan, and it's either consistent or it's not consistent. Mr. Modica's made an extremely strong case for why it's not even close to consistent. And, I think me and several of the other members of the board, I think when it's close, we always tend to go in favor of the applicant. If you were here tonight saying, we're at 13,000 square feet, we just need a 2,000 square foot variance, I think I at least would say, you know what, that's probably close enough, and given the other structures that, yeah, that we could make an argument maybe, but it's not, it's 5,000 to 15,000. It's, you can't do this stuff unless there's an affordable housing or senior housing component to it. It's just that clear, where I would struggle with what we would even tell the town council, how we came to the decision that it was consistent with the comprehensive plan. It would just be a lot of verbal gymnastics to try to get there to justify recommend, and that kills me, because again, I get it, I see your vision, I understand it. Like you, I just don't know how we get there without creating a lot of problems in the future.
Mr. Chairman?
And I want to make it clear, okay, is that this board is not pushing you to go to comprehensive permit. We're not pushing you to do that. It's something that I would be against doing, is to push you in that direction. It's just, I want you to appreciate the position that this board is in. Ms. Salvatore.
I just want to be clear that they wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if you use the word entitled, but they wouldn't be entitled to a second unit under a comprehensive permit. And I think that's important. I think a lot of communities would say, no, you're adding 100% density, right? I think in this community, we have encouraged that because we're trying to get to 10%, and that is a good way to get there by allowing a 1-for-1, right? So I just want to be clear that, and I'm not saying, I think you would support it, I think Glenn would support it, but I want to be clear that legally, they wouldn't be entitled to it, that's all.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add 2 brief points. As to I can certainly understand the goal of reaching that 10% benchmark, but respectfully, the applicant could construct a single-family unit that would not have to be affordable housing, that would place the town even further from that 10% benchmark. As I stated previously, it's not a larger development of 5, 10, 15 or more units where they would have the flexibility to do that. And the last thing I want to point out is I think, unfortunately, it becomes somewhat of an argument of form over substance. If predating this application, the owners of those pre-existing non-conforming properties came in for a blanket zone change for their multifamily properties, and it was granted, we'd be having a different conversation. I think the analysis would be different. But in both scenarios, what is at the property, what is at the surrounding neighborhood is the same. I mean, it's what we've said from the beginning. What you look at with the zoning map in the town of Cumberland and what you see when you drive through this neighborhood is markedly different. And we're simply asking for this 2-family unit, as what we've said, would fit into the neighborhood and help with that transition between the rest of the residential and the commercial pocket, which I may note, and as I mentioned before, I'll go into greater detail this evening, is also zoned R1. So I certainly thank you for your attention and consideration to this.
I really don't disagree with you, but I want you to appreciate what our position is, okay?
Sure.
And what we are responsible for as far as our recommendation, okay? Town council can do whatever they want, and that's fine, okay? And, but this is where this board is at this point in time. And I wish it was different, but it isn't. And the same thing about those existing multi-family units, okay? Some of them have been around for a long time and probably pre-existed even, well, definitely current zoning now, but even when the zoning ordinances first were developed, okay? But this is where we are.
Understood.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
because I'm in the area, you know what I mean? And
Well, wait a minute, before we go, I just want to make sure she's not on the butter, is she?
No, No, not at.
Okay, fine. I just want to make it clear.
Yes,
and
yes.
To the board and to
I'm
the
following
public.
the rules. Don't
Yes.
worry. Okay, what I can understand, okay, now, he can build those buildings if he's gonna go affordable housing. No problems. Now, and if he doesn't wanna do that, well, therefore he can't build. To me, it doesn't make sense. Now, another thing, because he's asking for, from R1 to R2, well, let's say that he wanna stay in R1. What can he build there then?
Just a single family.
Single family, one or two? Just one? Well, that's up to them to think about it, but like I say, you know what I mean, I think that what they're proposing, I think it's very nice, and it would fit very nicely in the area. And these people there, when they do something, they do it to extreme. They're very, very particular, and they're very responsible who they put in their houses, okay? Because I can vouch for that. They screen their tenants very well, and they, matter of fact, the tenants respect. They asking what they ask of them. So that's the thing that, you know, I think that it's not fair, okay? If you want to go affordable, yes, you can build. If you don't want to go affordable, you can't build. I think that's unbelievable there to demand of a person, okay, what he can do and he cannot do.
Oh, I understand, you know, and it's not, and I don't think anyone on this board would disagree with you.
And it's state law, so I mean, it's not town policy, that's the state law. That's imposed on the town. We don't have any discretion over
I understand,
how
but
any of that works.
It's ridiculous, yes.
But that's where we are, unfortunately.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Anyone else?
I agree with what it says,
So basically, you're saying ditto.
Yeah, basically, I mean, the one sentence that stands out here for me, for Mr. Market is, there's no ambiguity in the comprehensive plan's promotion of density bonuses only for affordable housing. So this is not affordable housing. And secondly, I am against just willy-nilly changing zones to get a two-family on a lot where you can build a single family, but it's to your advantage to build a two-family, so you just change the zoning. I think it's, you know, as you said, it opens a Pandora's box for somebody else saying, well, we can do it, they can do it, so, I don't know.
And it's difficult when the point is made that you have to look at this at a case-by-case basis.
Right.
Well, the point being is we can't look at it at a case-by-case basis because that means we're making decisions, you know.
Instead of following the regulations.
Right.
Right.
That's it. Unfortunately, that's the rub. Do you have any more presentation?
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion in regards to 28 Vivian.
Sorry again, did you want to take
Oh,
any?
I'm
Oh, sorry.
Is there somebody else there? Okay. I've got to get used to this. Oh, it was easier when we were in COVID, because that's the way we operated, but it's very difficult at this point to even remember. So check the queue.
Please state your name and address for the record. And please speak clearly and slowly. You can go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Cheryl Vaughn. I live at 15 Vivian Avenue, which is directly across from the...
You're on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time and your consideration. My name is Cheryl Vaughn. I live directly across from the property being discussed. I just wanted to clear a few things up.
Cheryl, can you
Yep.
repeat that? We had some background noise. here.
Motorcycle just went by and it.
Okay. Sure. My name is Cheryl Vaughn. I live directly across from the property being discussed. I just wanted to clear a couple of things up. My first question is, looking at the signatures, I couldn't see clearly what the signatures were. Looking at the signatures that were proposed, I did look at the map, and what's interesting is that from my property on, from 15 Vivian Avenue on, there are no signatures. There are signatures on other streets that don't have a direct impact to what's being discussed. And my question would be, how many signatures came from that 3-story house? Keeping in mind that that 3-story house has renters. They're not taxpayers in Cumberland. They're renters. They're not property owners. So their stake in this conversation is very, very different from the property owners. The pictures that were presented to you, the photographs that were presented to you that depicted Vivian Avenue, depicted that 3-story home, which is historical, over 100 years old. It also depicted my neighbor directly to my left, who works on autos and currently has certain projects, let's say, going on in his yard. And then the other property that was presented to you tonight was the property that is the auto shop on the corner of Mendon Road and Vivian Avenue. What's not being presented to you is the Vivian Avenue neighborhood. The face of that neighborhood is very, very different than what's being presented to you. And I feel like you're not getting the whole story here. And I think that presenting 16 signatures is not showing, is not completely and accurately describing support of the neighborhood. I can tell you without doubt, the neighbors do not support this. So I wanted you to have that information. I did share a letter with you earlier today with more detail. I won't go through and read all of that. And I've also sent that to the town council. I don't feel like this property has a place in a residential neighborhood in Cumberland. And I'd like, I appreciate your careful consideration of that and looking out for the neighbors' best interest as well. What is this property doing for Cumberland and for the Cumberland residents over businesses? I think that's the overlying question, and I appreciate your time in considering that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the queue? Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion in regards to 28 Vivian Avenue that we send a recommendation to the town council in regards to ordinance number 24-10, that the increased residential density is inconsistent with the goals and purposes of the comprehensive plan, and that it's the feeling of the board based on the findings of fact in Mr. Modica's memo to the Planning Board of June 20th, 2024, that the ordinance should be denied.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Bush. Any other discussion?
Can I make a comment?
On the discussion, absolutely.
I just want to comment on the owner and let him know that in my particular situation, I feel for the owner from the standpoint that he's a business person. He's trying to do what he thinks is good for his family and his businesses. It's just one of those things. Unfortunately, we run into technicalities, and I have sympathy for you. Unfortunately, I feel bad for that situation, and I feel bad for the neighborhood that we had to come to this particular point. So, just my viewpoint.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scown. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Yeah. Okay. I'll take a roll call, okay? Make it official. Ms. Rashich? No. Okay. Mr. McDonald? Yes. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Scown?
Yes.
Mr. Bush? Yes. Ms. Reese is absent. Mr. D'Ambrosio?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. The motion carries. 7 yeas and 1 nay. The next item of business on the agenda is public meeting, town council recommendation ordinance 24-09, project name existing big building, owner applicant Taft Auto Realty LLC, location 25 Grand Avenue, assessors plat 53, lot 69, zoning R1 with public water and public sewer. The applicant requests a rezoning of the subject property from R1 to C2. This item was continued from the May 30th, 2024 planning board meeting. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Fasha.
Oh.
Thank you.
Before I do, matter of fact, I have a question. And the question is, Maria, I don't know. I don't have a question.
We'll take a brief recess. Don't want to get in trouble. Talking like Albion Road.
Oh, we're good. How you doing, Andy? You hanging in there? She wasn't bad on that. Okay. Actually.
Ms. Rosick understands that she cannot participate. No, she doesn't have to leave the room, no. She just can't participate.
Okay.
Mr. Modica.
So, actually, Ms. Salvatore, I was speaking with Mr. Chair. We want to open up these last 3 items together, as we did last month.
If you feel that
They're related.
then, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'll do, I will.
Yeah, if you can, thank you.
I will announce the other two. We're going to listen to the next 3 applications jointly because they're all essentially part of the same application, even though they're separate applications. So the other is a public hearing, minor land development, unified development review of preliminary plan and town council recommendation ordinance number 24-09, project name existing garage. Owner applicant B&J Grand Properties LLC, location 26 Grand Avenue, assessors plat 53, lot 95, zoning R1 with public water and sewer. The applicant is requesting the property be rezoned from R1 to C2 and proposes to convert the building's vacant second floor to residential use. The application requires special use permits and variances from the zoning ordinance. This item was continued from the May 30th, 2024 planning board meeting. And also, item number 8, public hearing, major land development, unified development review of master plan and town council recommendation ordinance number 24-09. Project name proposed mixed use. Owner applicant J.M. and Sons Properties LLC, location 28 Grand Avenue, Assessors Plat 53, lots 93 and 94, zoning R1 with public water and sewer. The applicant is requesting the property be rezoned from R1 to C2 and proposes to construct a new building on the property to include a commercial use on the first floor and 2 apartments on the second floor. The application requires special use permits and variances from zoning ordinance. This item was also continued from the May 30th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. Mr. Modica.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to share my screen with you. This is something I did not include in your packet, and I just want to go over nonconformity and nonconforming uses, because that's what we're dealing with for 25 Grand Avenue and 26 Grand Avenue. So I'm just going to read this into the record. Article 16.4, building of structure nonconforming by use. Nonconforming uses are incompatible with and detrimental to permitted uses in the zoning districts in which they are located. Nonconforming uses cause disruption of the comprehensive land use pattern of the town, inhibit present and future development of nearby properties, and confer upon their owners a position of unfair advantage. Part of that unfair advantage is using the property in a more intensive way than someone else in that zone. Article A, treatment in residential zones. Non-conforming uses in residential zones are to be treated in a stricter fashion than non-conforming uses located in non-residential zones. Due to the disruption which non-conforming uses cause to the peace and tranquility of a residential zone, non-conforming uses therein should be eventually abolished or reduced to total conformity over time. So I'm not going to recommend that we abolish anything, but I think the purpose here with this rezone is to bring these properties into conformity and not intensify them. So I'm going to run to the intensity section, because we have 2 pre-existing uses. We have auto repair. Those 2 buildings have been used that way for decades, more recently as contract construction. So the point of the rezone is to make those uses, which are legally non-conforming, and we want to make them conforming. But that's it for those uses. We don't want to intensify the property. So a non-conforming use of such building, structure, or land shall not be intensified in any manner. Intensification shall include, but not be limited to, increasing hours of operation, increasing the number of dwelling units, etc. So the request to add the residential units is intensifying the non-conforming use with respect to 26 Grand Avenue. The request to add the additional uses, use code 5657, general and limited business, that's another request to intensify this non-conforming use. So in the case of 25 and 26 Grand Avenue, let me stop sharing. The purpose here is to bring these uses into conformity. The auto repair, the contract construction, that's what this property has been used for, and that's what we'd like it to be a legal use from here on in. Again, with respect to the limited and general business services, use code 5657, I don't think we want to be encouraging a little business center here along Grand Avenue. Those types of businesses are better suited along our main roads. And with respect to the mixed-use residential, first of all, that type of mixed use is inconsistent with our comprehensive plan, the residential use with this more intensive commercial use, which our comprehensive plan contemplates mixed neighborhood services with residential, not the mix of residential and intensive commercial like auto repair and workshops. And second, I'm by no means an environmental expert, but I think from a health and safety standpoint, I don't think it's sound or wise or good planning practice to place families above businesses that may be using harmful chemicals as part of business. So in particular, 25 Grand Avenue, in your packet, the applicant's attorney included a letter. They rescinded the request for use codes 12, which is the mixed use, and the business uses 56 and 57. So right now, they're only asking for 59 auto repair and 63 contract construction, which is what's currently happening there now. So we recommend favorably on that rezone request. For 26 Grand, across the street, the one with the existing 2-bay garage and where they want to put one apartment, we are recommending, again, only auto repair and contract construction for that property to legalize what is presently non-conforming and now make it conforming. This proposal requires several variances due to pre-existing non-conforming conditions, lot coverage, parking space setback for the commercial portion of the project, and buffers between commercial and residential zones. The department's recommending relief from those variances because they're pre-existing, but we are recommending denial of the variance related to the residential parking. Again, because we think it's poor practice to put apartments above the auto repair and workshop, and this is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. So that proposed addition of the residential requires parking variances, which in itself is another self-imposed hardship. Regard to the special use permits, we are recommending, again, because of pre-existing nonconformity, waiving the minimum lot size, lot frontage, and the buffer between commercial and residential zones. But as a condition of the zone change, there are landscaping and screening requirements, which we would put as a condition of approval of the zone change. And I'll get to that in just a sec. In terms of the minor land development project, again, we're recommending a denial because the introduction of these business uses and mixed use is intensifying a non-conformity of this property, and introducing these uses are inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. So we're recommending denial of the preliminary plan. So for the zone change to town council, we're recommending the planning board forward a recommendation that only auto repair, use code 59, and contract construction, use code 63, be allowed on the property, with the condition of the zone change that the applicant prepare a landscape plan to meet the special use requirements for landscaping and screening. And this plan can be submitted to the planning department and administratively approved. I'm going to do 28 Grand Avenue real quick because we are recommending denial of all the requests. The variances in terms of the buffer between commercial and residential, the parking space setback, the minimum parking requirement, these are all self-imposed hardships. With the submitted site plan that you see, these variances have already been baked into the design. They have designed in the variances. These are self-imposed hardships. They are not trying to meet the setback requirements, largely because they don't have enough land area. And this leads to the special use permit, where the minimum lot size is supposed to be 20,000, or must be 20,000 square feet to set up an auto repair business. This lot is 10,000. So there's not enough land area for this business to operate in conformance with zoning and in conformance with our land development regulations. Again, what's obvious from the site plan, they clearly don't have enough room to meet the parking requirements, which are practically spilling into the street or the 50-foot buffer from the residential zone. So we're recommending denial of the special use permit. The major land development component, again, mixed-use residential with the auto repair does not meet the comp plan, neither does introducing businesses here along Grand Avenue to potentially create an intensified business node. The zone change recommendation to town council, because of the totality of the zoning variances that are needed, lack of meeting the special use permit criteria, and the inconsistency with the comprehensive plan, we're recommending the planning board forward a recommendation to town council to deny the zone change for 28 Grand Avenue.
Mr. McDonald?
I have a few questions about the use codes.
Sure.
The first one, number 59, which is on, it doesn't have a page, but it's number 59 in the use code. And number 59 mentions a gas station. And it's, I don't want to go through these, but at least some of these, 59 is still in play. So the question is, the way, when you look at that, it's somewhat awkward. It's got automotive crossed out and gas station not. And I guess the question is, a potential future use of any of these properties that has approval for approval for automotive services, is there a potential in the future for it to be made into a gas station, irrespective of permits for tanks and all of that stuff?
All right. I think the applicant's request is only for auto repair, correct? That you do not want a gas station.
I didn't hear that.
The applicant does not want to include gas station as part of the request, only auto repair.
Okay. The only other thing, it's a very small point, but in here you mentioned barber shop in connection with mixed use and number 12. But yet barber shops is mentioned not in 12, but in 54. Am I making out of a mountain out of a molehill here?
I was just making an analogy of neighborhood businesses, of Main
Okay.
Street type businesses that you would find. Normally, you would not find auto repair on your downtown Main Street.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Board have any other questions? Mr. Modica?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Modica. We'll hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Charles Redahan on behalf of the petitioners, Tap Auto Realty, the owner of 25 Grand Avenue, more specifically identified as Tax Assessor's Plat 53, Lot 69. Also on behalf of J&B Grand Properties, the owner of 26 Grand Avenue, more specifically identified as Assessor's Plat 53, Lot 95. And on behalf of the applicant, JM & Sons Properties, LLC, the owner of 28 Grand Avenue, more specifically identified as Assessor's Plat 53, lots 93 and 94. Mr. Chairman and Board, similar to the previous matter before you this evening, I will give a brief presentation. I do have the applicant here who has a presentation with photographs and maps that will help to highlight some of the issues that we would like to bring to your attention and your consideration when considering the applications before you this evening. Beginning first with 25 Grand Avenue. The petitioner, as I mentioned, Tap Auto Realty LLC, is a petition to amend the zoning designation of 25 Grand Avenue from its present zoning designation of R1 residential to C2 commercial. The applicant is seeking a favorable recommendation from the planning board to the town council. The property is currently used by JB Cody Construction and TAC Auto, a construction firm and a auto repair shop, respectively. Collectively, these present uses constitute the pre-existing non-conforming uses that Mr. Modica highlighted moments ago. While the present petition stands alone as to the relief and request that we have for the planning board this evening, we would like you to view it, if you could, in the context of the two subsequent items on this evening's agenda, 26 and 28 Grand Avenue, as it helps to consider the applications collectively for purposes of considering the future and the character of the neighborhood. As noted in the staff report, the applicant rescinded its request for use codes 12, which is mixed-use residential, 56, which is limited business service, and 57, general business service. While the planning department recommends a favorable recommendation regarding the zone change, I will highlight that it included the condition of the recommendation that 25 Grand Ave lot be merged with Assessor's Plat 53, Lot 56, which is part of Vivian Avenue. As the lots are not under common ownership, this would present some tax consequences for the seller, and as there's no common ownership, it's not an avenue that the applicant is interested in pursuing at this time. Moving to 26 Grand Avenue, and the applicant B&J Grand Properties LLC. Before you this evening is a petition to amend the zoning designation of the property from R1 to C2. The applicant is seeking a favorable recommendation from the planning board to the town council on its zone change request. It's also seeking conditional approval of its preliminary plan. The applicant intends to rezone the property from R1 to C2 to convert the vacant second floor space to a single residential apartment. The planning department opposed this proposed mixed-use component of the present petition, despite the fact that it is permissible under the code. While there were revisions to the code as recently as a few months ago, this was not an area that was addressed. At present, the property is pre-existing, non-conforming auto repair. If the applicant is unable to put in a second floor the applicant rather is unable to presently put in a second floor apartment despite its present R1 zoning, as it would be incompatible with its commercial uses on the first floor. Accordingly, the applicant, at the very least, is attempting to amend the zoning designation of the property, which is presently non-conforming, and simply make it conform with the code. Prior to submitting the present petition, as well as the petition for 28 Grand Avenue, the applicant engaged in numerous meetings with the planning department in order to propose a petition that would be palatable to the planning department. As part of that effort, the applicant significantly pared down its requested C2 uses to the 5 that are currently presented in the petition. These uses encompass what the property currently has, what it's had for decades in the past, and what it hopes to utilize the property for in the future. It is important to consider this proposal in the context of the surrounding neighborhood. While zoned residential, is the site of various properties that house pre-existing non-conforming commercial uses, properties that are both on tonight's docket and are simply neighbors that have not submitted any petition for any kind of relief or attempts to have their property zoning designation amended to conform with the code. While the planning department argues that this zone change, which includes, as we mentioned, a mixed-use residential component, would negatively affect or impact the surrounding neighborhood, as we noted in length, it would serve as a transition point between the residential neighborhoods of Governor and Vivian, and the commercial pocket of the north end of Grand Ave. Grand Ave clearly has a commercial character on its north end. Allowing this proposal forward with a mixed-use second-floor residential apartment would help to soften and integrate this component. As part of the requested zone change, the applicant seeks variances in the issuance of special use permits as follows. Considering zoning variances, the applicant requests zoning variances for the following: parking space setback requirement of Article 14-2B of the zoning ordinance for the town of Cumberland, and the 50-foot buffer as required between C2 and R1 zones under Article 6-9A of the ordinance. The requested variances are a result purely of the unique characteristics of the subject lot and the existing building. The size of the existing building in proportion to the size of the lot does not allow for the applicant to comply with the parking space setback or the 50-foot buffer requirement between C2 and R1 zones. The applicant has not taken any affirmative action, or any action, I should say, since owning the property to expand the building or otherwise reduce the lot size, and accordingly, these dimensional shortfalls are not a result of any action of the applicant. Notably, the zoning official for the town of Cumberland issued a zoning certificate in April 2022, finding that the presence of auto repair service was a pre-existing legal non-conforming use. Accordingly, the granting of these variances would allow for the property's zoning designation to be amended from R1 to R2, would not alter the characteristic of the surrounding neighborhood or impair the purposes of the comprehensive plan. Regarding economic development, the comprehensive plan for the town of Cumberland notes, where appropriate, amend the zoning map to reflect present commercial, industrial, and agricultural uses. The granting of these variances, concomitant with the amending of the zoning designation of the property from R1 to R2, is clearly in alignment with the comprehensive plan. Lastly, if the property is required to conform to the provisions of the ordinance, the applicant would no longer be able to yield beneficial use from the property. That's it, second floor. As the property has been used exclusively for commercial purposes in the previous decades, being forced to abandon these uses because of the property's failures to meet the dimensional requirements would cause significant hardship. In considering briefly the special use permits, two of the proposed uses at the property, 26 Grand Ave, would require special use permits. That's use code 59, auto repair service, and use code 63, contract construction service. The property is a 7,500 square foot lot and falls short of the 20,000 square foot minimum lot size requirement for the ordinance for auto repair, as noted by Mr. Monica. Additionally, the property is 75 feet wide, which falls short of the minimum lot width and frontage requirement of 100 feet under the ordinance. Again, as with the variances, these dimensional shortfalls are a result of the unique characteristic of the subject lot and existing building. A lot size makes it impossible to comply with these requirements. The applicant did not create, nor did the applicant contribute to these shortfalls. In the 70 years since the building's construction, the property has housed various auto repair businesses and construction companies in related industries. Consequently, the granting of these variances in conjunction with the issuance of two special use permits will not alter the general character of the surrounding area. Given the size of the lot, the size of the pre-existing building, the 30-foot buffer that we are suggesting is the least relief necessary. Conversely, if the planning board were not to grant these variances, the applicant would be unable to obtain either special use permit. This would again create a significant hardship that would prevent the applicant from using the property in a manner consistent with the property's past and present commercial uses. The applicant is here with me this evening. As I noted, he has prepared a brief presentation and will be available to answer any questions or comments from the board or the community. I will briefly touch on 28 Grand Avenue, which can be viewed almost as a identical structure to what we are proposing on 26, or what is already existing on 26 Grand Avenue. 28 Grand Avenue would consist of a commercial first floor with a residential second floor. Again, for 28 Grand Avenue, we are asking for zoning variances as well as special use permits. The applicant requests a parking space setback pursuant to the requirement of Article 14-2B of the zoning ordinance for the town of Cumberland, the minimum parking space requirement as set forth in Article 14-3 of the zoning ordinance for the town of Cumberland, and the 50-foot buffer as required between C2 and R1 zones under Article 6-9A of the zoning ordinance for the town of Cumberland. As I mentioned, with auto repair and the other proposed uses in the context of 26 Grand Avenue, the dimensional shortfalls as to the lot size, lot width, and lot frontage are a result of the unique characteristics of the property. Given the size of the lot, its location relative to the adjacent residential lot, as well as its location in respect to the other commercial properties on Grand Avenue, the setback variance and the buffer variance are the least relief necessary that would allow for commercial development of the property. Of note, while the property is located in an exclusively residential area, it is adjacent to a number of properties that operate legal non-conforming commercial businesses. This should be considered perhaps only in the context of the general character of the surrounding neighborhood. The zoning official for the town of Cumberland found that the property was a parking lot for the businesses at 26 Grand Avenue, which was found to be a legal non-conforming accessory use. As the use of the property has been exclusively commercial, amending the zoning designation to be amended from R1 to C2 at 28 Grand Avenue would not alter the general character of the surrounding area or impair the purposes of the comprehensive plan. And I'll allow the applicant to walk you through our petitions for the 3 properties.
Brian Cody. Brief overview, we're petitioning the town to make several zone changes here in Cumberland, Rhode Island. Each zone change supports the nature of the neighborhood and encourages future small business to pursue tenancy and significantly increase tax base in Cumberland. Several of the properties have been established automotive repair properties for 70 years. What we are proposing would blend in with the neighborhood and cultivate the harmony of small business in residential area. Here's a photo of 25 Grand Ave, proposed C2, currently zoned R1 with special use for automotive repair. We're proposing a zone change for C2 and special use for automotive repair and contract construction services only, which the existing use is what we're using it for. No additional building changes. 26 Grand Ave is the middle picture, owned by B&J Grand Properties. Currently zoned R1 with a special use automotive repair. Proposing a zone change from C2 with mixed use, general business services, and a special use for automotive repair and contract construction services. We'd also like to create a second floor apartment above the existing garage. And then 28 Grand Ave, the picture on the right is 2 vacant lots owned by J.M. & Sons LLC, currently zoned R1, proposing a zone change from C2 with mixed use, general business services, and special use for automotive repair, contract construction services, and construct a 4-bay commercial structure on the first floor and 2 residential apartments on the second floor. Again, here's the map for the area. This is 25 Grand Ave, our existing building. This is 26 Grand Ave, where we're looking to put an apartment above. And this area here is where we're looking to add another building. Again, in 2023, our corporations have paid $24,263.08 in taxes. We don't get trash pickup. With the 4 petitions before you, tax will be paid to the town. The tax paid to the town would significantly increase as the 2 properties are currently vacant lots. This does not include any taxes paid by tax auto or other businesses, at least the garage. This is a picture of 25 Grand Ave. We purchased the property located at 25 Grand Ave back in 2019. The building and property underwent serious renovations, remodeling the property. The property went from an eyesore to a professional, well-kept business operation. Previously, the yard was littered with abandoned vehicles, trailers, and garbage. Please see the photos. Proper permits were pulled and passed through the town during the renovation process. It's now known that we should have been a zone change to C2 requested and provided during this time. We did not know this, nor did the town raise any concerns. Now we're requesting a zone change from C2, from R1 to C2. This is a video taken before when we first initially bought the property. The owner had cleaned up a lot of the property as it was during this video, but this was the backyard of 25 Grand Ave. This is a historical map of 2018. This is from 2018, before we bought the property. This is 25 Grand Ave. This is our existing building. This is the backyard. This is the front yard, and this is 28 Grand Ave. This is 26 Grand Ave. This is what it looked like before I purchased the property. This is a map of 2002. As you can see, there's no houses on the backside of 26 Grand Ave. There's also no houses up the street where there's also automotive parking. Today, this is all housing, and today behind 26 Grand Ave is all housing. Here's some more before and after pictures of 25 Grand Ave. That's what the building looked like to what it is today. Another before and after picture looking from corner of Governor and Vivian. So the planning department wants to merge lots 96 with lot 56. This is the existing Tap Auto building. Tap Auto Realty owns this building. JM & Sons owns the parcel over here, which is 69. JB Cody rents the property at Tap Auto Realty and also rents separately from JM & Sons for this parcel of land here. Not common ownership. We can't easily merge them. Again, here's the petition. So the caller had a question about number 6, 20 Vivian Ave. She is a renter that signed the agreement, the petition. Again, here's the zoning map of petitioners that signed. As you can see, the 2 residential properties on the corner, I did try and talk to the others up the street, but they weren't home. All this, these 3 properties here, more than happy. And that's what we have for the zone change. That's all I have for 25. Do we want to do this 25, or are we doing 26, and are we doing everything all together? I personally would like to do each individually because it gets a little complex, but it's up to you guys what you want to do.
Well, we would handle it separately anyway. But we needed to see what the entire picture.
You want me, I can continue my presentation and then we can talk individually. It's up to you guys, whatever.
We're not voting on each one separately, are we?
I think,
Correct.
I think that was one of my questions, because the,
I guess we have.
the recommendation of the town council is on one ordinance, so it seems like the recommendation is to approve some parts of the ordinance, deny some parts of the ordinance. So is that going to be one motion where we just chop up the ordinance, or is, because in one recommendation it says we think that the ordinance is consistent with the comprehensive plan, then in the next recommendation says it's inconsistent, with but it's the same ordinance. So it seems like it has to be one motion with all of the stuff together.
That's the way they decided to present it. So the Vivian Ave was presented separately from the other three. You have certain properties that you need to make planning decisions on first. And then, so I mean, I would just, whether he presents all of this together, I don't think is a problem. But when you make your decisions, you're gonna have to take each property separately.
The planning recommendations.
Well, you're
and the
gonna, you're
town
making decisions tonight too.
Right.
You're
So those, yeah, I
approving,
understand those have to be separate. I guess my question is about the zoning ordinance.
well,
There's
that,
one
that'll
ordinance,
come
but
with.
three different
So
recommendations.
at the same time that you're reviewing the, pick one, 25, you're gonna be making decisions on a development review, right? And then you're gonna, on the same, in the same line, make a recommendation to the council. So for each one, you're gonna be doing both, including variances. Yeah, or special use permits.
I believe for 25, it's just the recommendation for the zone change. There's no plan component of that.
So to keep it clean for the council, we're talking 3 separate motions and on one ordinance, but the motions would be separate.
Well, I'm concerned about the decisions as well. You're going to be making actual decisions, so we can separate out what your recommendations are to the council.
Okay.
But you're going to be, Glenn's going to have to produce a written decision. So it's got to all be on the same, and the recommendation to the council will be in that decision. But I'm assuming he'll draft something that kind of combines the recommendations to the council with some background.
So would you prefer me to continue, or we? Continue? Okay.
Yeah.
So this is 26 Grand Ave. This is currently what it looks like today. Again, we pay $24,263.08 in taxes. This is what the property looked like prior to our ownership. It was a car sales, auto sales, and repair shop, along with the 2 lots next to it. This is a letter or an email from Glenn stating they would be amenable to putting the apartment on the 2nd floor of the garage if it were deeded 99 years affordable. Hi, Mike, to have an auto repair and residence in 2 of the uses on the same lot would require a zoning ordinance amendment for that property. The amendment would be heard by the planning board, which makes a recommendation to town council, which would vote on the measure. The planning department could support such an amendment if the garage were deed restricted to households earning 80% or less of the median income for a period of 99 years. Market rents in the location above a garage are probably at affordable levels, see attached. We would also require landscaping around the property. After the letter, the planning department knew we would not be making an affordable unit for various reasons. We spoke about that at last meeting. They changed their opinion to you can't have an apartment over automotive or contract services. However, according to your zoning code, the use is permissible in C2. You can have mixed use with automotive and contract services, special use in your zoning table. I have an employee that's a single mother with 1 6-year-old daughter. She has pride. She does everything she can to provide for her family. She works 40 hours a week for us, and she has 2 part-time seasonal jobs to pay her bills. She makes too much money to rent this apartment as affordable housing, yet is struggling to make ends meet. In all honesty, we would probably end up renting her this at a very discounted rate, well below the 80%. This does not have to do with the amount of income we'd be taking in from the affordable housing or making more money renting out without the affordable housing. This is the zoning use table. So as you can see, limited business, general business, automotive, construction service, and construction service. C2 is the least aggressive zone that allows for contract services and automotive. Glenn had made a big deal about how little C2 there is in town and how it's reserved for bigger developments. This is really our only option to make the properties legal and conforming without making the zone industrial. We also didn't come to this choice of C2 without the guidance of the planning department. Here's the plan for the existing structure on 26 Grand Ave. So here's a short video of what the inside of one of the garages look like. And so basically it's two 19 by 37 garage rental spaces. Each unit has a bathroom. Building is fully fire alarmed. The spray foam installation in the ceiling joists between proposed apartment to help with sound. The ceiling and the wall between each unit is fire coated. It's got a new 200 amp electrical service. They have gas modine heaters. The garage doors are quiet side opening garage doors, so the 10 and above wouldn't hear the garage door opening and closing. Our lease currently requires quiet hours from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. This presentation is meant to demonstrate why this building would be a great addition to our community. However, there's one odd objection. The planning department's biggest concern is that the residential space will lead to safety and health issues. This doesn't make sense because the building meets all the current building and safety fire codes. On top of that, the building official and fire chief both stated they have no concerns during our TRC meeting. This clearly meets the use codes in C2 zone table. These would be the noise concerns. This is the noise ordinance in the town of Cumberland. As you can see, there's only a 5 decibel difference between R1, 2, and 3 zones and C2 zones. Our tenants are limited to quiet hours from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. However, this table shows the code for decibels allowed in each zone depending on time. This is pictures of the existing second floor of 26 Grand Ave. There'd be a wall in between here. This would be 2 separate bedrooms and a walk-in closet. The apartment would have its own separate entrance, 2 bedroom, 1 full bath, 1,100 square feet of living space. Both bedrooms are 13.6 by 12, which are good sized bedrooms, and each have a 6-foot by 12-foot walk-in closet. The entire unit would be spray foam for noise reduction and energy efficiency. Space would be heated and cooled with a ductless mini split in the attic. Having AC would prevent the tenants from having to open the windows of the apartment for noise, dust, and fume mitigation. As you can see, we've tried to make every provision possible to make this a great apartment for anyone to rent. The renter would know exactly what they're living over, and if they don't like what they're living over, they don't have to live there. They can decide whether or not they want to live there. This is the parking for 26 Grand Ave. We have 6 commercial spaces on this side, and we have a designated 3 space for the apartment above. So it's a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 parking spaces. Planning department doesn't want you to approve the 3 parking spaces on the second floor for the second floor apartment because 1, it's too close to the building. We have 3 spaces here. We can limit that to 2. There will be a fence dividing 26 Grand Ave and 28 Grand Ave here. We have 12-foot of width in the parking spot for the residents. So when their doors open, they wouldn't hit the fence or intrude into the commercial space. All this proposed parking is existing asphalt. So we're asking for side relief for the driveway for the residential apartment. As this aerial shows, not one driveway in this entire neighborhood meets that requirement. Every driveway you look at is on the property line. The top right picture is abutting 26 Grand Ave. There's actually two driveways, one on each side, abutting each property line. And the lower picture is on Vivian. This is an aerial view from 2020, before we bought the property. They were running grand auto sales. There were 17 cars in this picture, plus however many vehicles are in the garage. We're looking for 6 and 2 to be required. So we're looking for examples of hard commercial over or next to residential. That's a concern. On Mendon Road, 4115 Mendon Road is a used car dealership with residential above. And then we go to bars. Several C1 properties in town propose far greater problems in terms of noise, fire hazard, rodents, and other issues that commercial garages with limited business hours. For example, some bars allow their customers to remain outdoors late at night, which would be much more problematic than garages with noise restrictions from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Another example of a commercial would be a commercial kitchen, which presents a higher fire risk than a garage would. In addition, a commercial garage would generate far less noise and air pollution than bars and restaurants. Bars and restaurants have live music, loud patrons, smoking, noisy kitchen equipment. A commercial garage, on the other hand, would typically only have noise of occasional car repair or building maintenance. On the other hand, a business conducted in our leased garages would typically occur from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. when the renter would be at work. Therefore, a commercial garage is not as concerning as a bar or restaurant that would not cause the same issue. So as you can see, there's hours of the bars, how late they're open, some till 1 a.m. In Glenn's packet, you'll see there's a building in Providence that he found, which was a commercial space on the first floor, residents above. This is at 345 South Main Street, Woonsocket. It is a 2,600 square foot apartment on the second floor and a 960 square foot commercial contractor space on the first. This is 548 Wood Ave, also in Woonsocket. I actually have floor plans showing the commercial space on the first floor and the residential apartment on the second floor. Again, the whole area is zoned R1, including all these properties. And the map on the right is showing what the properties are existingly being used for. Again, this is a map of the properties. We're talking about 26 Grand Ave, which is right here. This is an aerial view of Grand Avenue and the surrounding area from 2002. Before, the properties at 25 and 26 Grand Ave were renovated. As you can see, there's no houses surrounding 26 Grand Ave other than the existing three-family on the left side. There are cars and trucks everywhere, and the neighborhood is clearly commercial. Every homeowner abutting the property knew what kind of commercial uses were in the area. We have totally changed the dynamic of the neighborhood for the better and are planning to continue to do so. And this map is in 2018, before we bought the property. Again, the zone change petition, the people that have signed. That's all I have for 26. So for 28 Grand Ave, it's 2 vacant lots. We're looking to make a zone change to C2. This property has been used as extra storage for vehicles for more than decades. This property remains an empty lot used for miscellaneous storage. We're looking to combine 2 currently R1 lots with special use automotive and make it a C2 zone. We'd like to construct a mixed-use building under a new C2 zone. The building would consist of 2 commercial businesses on the first floor and 2 residential apartments on the second floor, similar to 26 Grand Ave, just larger. Again, the tax we pay the town every year. Historical map from 2002, showing there's no residents in the area. Every resident that moved into that neighborhood after that knew what was there. 2018, before we bought the property, there's got to be 20 vehicles in that parking lot, if not more. Again, the use map. And I just want to be clear with the uses that we're going for. So mixed use residential, these are what we're limited to. I can't use anything else but this. Limited business services, which would be advertising agency, business office, credit reporting, collection service, interior designer, photocopy, duplication, mailing and stethograph service, private employment service, research and development, related activities, watch, clock, and jewelry repair service. General business service, printing, copying, bicycle repair, building maintenance service, car washing, catering service, cleaning establishment, including on-premise dry cleaning, pawn shop, radio, TV, electrical, electronics, and appliance repair service, reupholstery, furniture repair service, trade school for instruction of general business services, wholesale merchandise broker, excluding wholesale service, wholesale storage. And then we have repair automotive and contract construction services. This is all we would be limited to. This is the parking at 28 Grand Ave. This is a conceptual design that we are proposing for the property at 28 Grand Ave. The planning department and town solicitor would not hear the zone change without knowing what type of building we'd be putting here. Here is the concept we would like to move forward with. It would be a similar building to what we previously spoke about at 26 Grand Ave. 2 commercial garages on the first floor, 2 residential units above. The commercial and residential entrance would be separate. Again, we're looking for a favorable recommendation to rezone this property C2. So the parking would be on the left here for the commercial in the red. The green would all be grass, and the blue would be the residential spaces, and this would be, in the middle would be the residential entrance to the second floor. Again, this is a conceptual drawing of what we would like to put there. The building size can change. The fencing and shrubbery is not on here. We understand all that. We're trying to get the approval for the zone change before we move forward with spending thousands of dollars on landscape architects, design architects, and making the building fit to the property. This is what the building would look like. Common objections, size and setback. We work with the town to provide building plans that conform with any setback or size constraint. The plans provided are conceptual, not final. Landscape screening, same thing. Parking, we will need relief on parking for the commercial parking spaces if we're not allowed to have the parking spaces inside the garage. We have four spaces for the residents. We can meet the setbacks by making the building smaller. Potential uses, we are requesting to be limited to mixed-use residential, general business service, repair automotive service, and contract construction service within the C2 zone. And that's all I have.
Board have any questions?
Yes,
Question?
at 26, where you have the existing building and you're proposing an apartment above,
Yep.
you have two garages there. Are they currently leased?
Yes, correct. There's a contractor that does mainly concrete work, and I have a plumber in there that does plumbing.
Okay. And the building you're proposing, you could bring in more auto repair or whatever, is that part of it?
So yes, it will be zoned. We could have auto repair there or contract services. We're aiming more towards contract services, but the whole idea is I need to be able to rent it. I can't rent it to just a contractor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But we did look at the whole C2, everything we could do in C2, we limit it to those 4 uses.
Right.
5 with the mixed use.
And just concerning what the attorney had put in his letter here, that, and this is pertaining to 28 Grand Avenue, that the dimensional shortfalls as to the lot size, lot width, and lot frontage are a result of unique characteristics of the property. I disagree, because you're creating the unique characteristics by changing the zone and putting up a commercial building in an R1 zone. And so that you're creating the situation. It doesn't make sense at all on that lot.
I guess respectfully, my response to that would be, while it's certainly undisputed in an R1 zone, as we've touched upon in length, the surrounding properties are R1 in name only. They've been operating as commercial properties for decades at this point. What we're proposing, and we hoped would be a palatable proposal, would be a mixed-use property that would allow for demarcation between commercial and residential aspects on the particular property, but also soften the commercial uses of Grand Avenue with the neighborhood of Governor and Vivian and the surrounding neighborhoods.
I don't know how putting commercial and residential together softens anything. But again, I understand what you're saying, but you're creating the situation yourself. Not the lot isn't doing it.
Anyone else, comments?
To me, this sounds like it's very similar to the first one that we listened to, where it's not necessarily that we're for or against whatever beautification you want to do to the neighborhood or what the building looks like.
Are you speaking into the mic?
Oh, yeah, maybe it's not close enough. It's more, it seems to me like it's more of a simple math equation. You have a property, you want to do something on it that's not allowed. It doesn't meet the requirements. Whether you change it or not doesn't change the fact that you're left with needing variances and not meeting the comprehensive plan.
Sir, is that comment specific to 28 Grand Avenue, or are you speaking generally about the three properties before you this evening?
Generally, I mean, the first one is fairly straightforward because you are asking for a zone change and not looking to do anything different with it. You're creating this, as Mr. Bush mentioned, you're creating these hardships and creating these situations that if you were looking for a simple zone change, that might work. But because you're introducing these different uses, you're running into these math equation issues where the math just doesn't work. That's my point. We have the ordinances, we have the regulations, they just don't meet them by a substantial amount.
Respectfully, my response to that would be these, specifically with 26 Grand Avenue, it has existed in this capacity for those proposed uses that we have. It has functioned not as a residential property, but as effectively a commercial property with auto repair, with the proposed uses we have. As to hardship, it's an existing lot and building of record that has a 70-year commercial history. So I think at the end of the day, had we not brought this application forward, we would have a non-conforming use. At the end of the day, I think the most important thing to remember is we are seeking to make this property, which is legal non-conforming, we're just simply seeking to make it conform with the code.
With the exception that you're looking to change what the uses are.
Respectfully, it is, we're not changing anything with 26 Grand Avenue. It's currently auto repair and...
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the other two specifically.
Oh, it's expanding, okay, I understand.
Any other questions, comments from the board? At this point, I will ask for comments from the audience regarding this application. If there's anyone here who wishes to speak at this point. And please come forward to the podium and give us your name and address to the record. Is there anyone in the queue? No one in the queue, okay. I want to make it very clear, it's all, even though we've got separate motions to make here, we're looking at all three of them in their entirety. So if anyone has any questions regarding any of these three applications. Okay, no one in the queue, okay. Okay, pleasure of the board.
I can start making motions, but I'm going to need help. And just for the members of the audience, a lot of these decisions we're being asked to make tonight, up until a couple of months ago, were made by the zoning board. State law changed in January and gave the planning board responsibility for a lot of these zoning issues that I've been on the board, I don't know, 13 or 14 years now. We've never had to deal with a lot of these issues. So if things seemed a little disjointed and confused, it's just because this is really one of the first development plan reviews we've done to this extent. So that's why I'm asking for help.
So I would suggest that you start with 25 Grand Avenue. That one seems like the most straightforward.
Yep. So, Mr. Chairman, in regards to 25 Grand Avenue, I would make a motion that we send a recommendation to the town council that in regards to the part of ordinance number 2509, 2409 that deals with 25 Grand Avenue and 28 Vivian Avenue, that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. We would recommend that they add the condition that the zone change shall not take effect until an administrative subdivision merging 25 Grand Avenue and 28 Vivian Avenue is recorded. This decision is based on the findings of fact in Mr. Modica's memo to the planning board dated June 20th, 2024.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. McDonald. Any discussion? Okay. The only thing is that in the memo, it references mixed-use residential, limited business, and so on. And I think it was the request of Mr. Modica and also the applicant that we consider, let's see. Okay, consider items 59 and 63 on the front page.
Right, they've rescinded the request.
Right, I just want to make sure it's clear that it's,
You're only voting for 59 and 63.
right, because if we send the memo on, it's got the other three requests.
Well, you're going to rewrite the decision anyway, right?
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it will include just 59 and 63. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes yes, motion carries.
All right, so for 26 Grand Avenue, it looks like there's a special use permit, 3 zoning variances, preliminary plan, and the town council recommendation. Should all of that be separate, or do we lump special use zoning variances together and then do preliminary plan separate and town
What
council
is your
separate?
motion generally going to be?
My motion would be to go with the planning department's recommendation to deny the special use permit, approve the dimensional variance, deny the parking setbacks, approve the maximum lot coverage. Preliminary plan is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, and the town council recommendation of the town council that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan with the conditions that are outlined.
Okay, so are you recommending approval of the zone change for the first floor existing use? I just need to understand what your motion is.
I'm struggling a bit because the recommendations are like littered in the memo, so they're not all together, so I'm
So
trying to pull them out.
I don't want to put thoughts in anybody's head, but it's an existing commercial use on the first floor. Is that something you're supporting generally?
Yes.
Okay. And what are the 2 use codes that they're proposing? Okay, so what are the use codes that you can, that you are supporting?
Mr. Modica's recommendation is that we forward a recommendation of the town council is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
No.
Only auto repair service, number 59, contract construction services, number 63.
Okay, so I think that if that's your motion, it should be a recommendation to the council for approval of the zone change from R1 to C2 with the conditions that the following use codes would be permitted, which is 59, auto repair service, and 63, contract construction services.
And then there was one other recommendation of the town council that the property shall be exempt from the dimensional requirements for maximum lot coverage, parking space setback for the commercial use, and buffer requirements between C2 and
Yeah,
R1 zones.
But it's not appropriate for the council to be making those decisions because this application is before you. So the council doesn't decide on variances and special use permits. Having said that, this is a non-conforming use that is intended to be legalized. So in terms of the auto repair and the contract construction, I think that if they're looking to legalize a non-conforming use, those items aren't going to be in question because everything's there. So, and I know this is very confusing. I mean, this is, in 25 years, this is the most complicated petition I've ever seen. I think what you're trying to do is make it right, the contract construction service and the auto repair, and you're trying to legalize
We're
that.
just trying to take something that's legal non-conforming and make it
Exactly.
legal conforming. Yeah.
So that can be your motion, that would be consistent with the comprehensive plan and is appropriate from a planning perspective. And I think that's really all you need to say about the zone change, if that's what you're...
What about excuse me, isn't this the one, what about the addition of one apartment on the second floor?
Well, what I'm hearing is that the motion does not include mixed-use residential as a condition for a use. So that would not be part of the recommendation to the council. You're only recommending auto repair and contract construction services, is that correct?
Yes.
In order to bring it in with the performance of the current
Right.
use.
Right. So I would just make that motion for now, and then is there a planning application associated with this? Okay, so make that recommendation first.
Okay.
I think you can say so moved.
So moved.
I need a second.
So it's just 59 and 63, is that correct at the moment?
Yes.
Okay, I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Butler, second by Mr. McDonald. Any other discussion?
As far as the apartment above, I mean, the presentation to me was very, very thorough. And I understand, you know, having an automotive repair service underneath a residential unit. However, with all of the precautions that the applicant has made, I'm not totally objected to that at this particular point, because I think the buildings there, it's not really affecting the area considerably. I do have an objection to the next situation where you're trying to develop more of these, but that particular one, I wouldn't object to that apartment under that circumstance, because I think there's a lot of precautions, especially if the technical committee and fire codes and everything else have been met. I don't understand why we wouldn't possibly approve something like that.
So there's a motion that has been made, and if that motion does not pass based on what Chris just presented, perhaps there's another motion, which would include mixed-use residential. That's up to you.
Can I
So I
amend-
mean, if the discussion is, you know, I think that we should allow that apartment on the second floor, and if there's a majority of you that agree with that, then Chris's motion gets denied and you make the next motion.
Can I amend the motion?
You can't amend it, but he needs a second.
Yeah,
He
we've already got a
got
second.
a second.
We've already got a second, so we're in the discussion.
So, okay.
Yeah, but people know what you're thinking, and if they agree with you, they would vote no, and then you would move on to add the mixed-use residential.
Well, I might, more discussion on that. I understand your point. I'm wondering, again, what precedent we set when we start allowing residences over gas stations or auto repair. And at the same time, I understand what the applicant is with looking at the photos he showed us, that the property is pretty much built out. I mean, the exterior is there. The interior work's been upstairs, some has been done, but, so,
And the only other thing that I'm seeing is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the proposed residential spaces, there's not enough, is that the problem?
They don't meet the dimensional requirements, the setback requirements.
Okay, so when you, if you were to recommend approval, including mixed use, you're going to have to deal with the fact that they don't meet dimensional requirements for parking spaces. So that, again, totally up to you, but that's going to be the next thing that you have to address.
If we were to vote no and allow his motion to be made.
If you were to,
If we were to vote against Mr. Butler's,
correct,
then mixed use, if Mr. Scowen makes a motion, comes into play, and then what you just said hits the table, we have to look at that.
then you're going to have to look at that next.
Parking, yes, okay, right.
Because I was thinking along the same lines as Mr. Scowen. But then I forgot that there are, if we went to mixed use, there are other circumstances we would have to consider.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
forgive me for interrupting, but
No, that's fine.
I understand that the petitioner is a businessman, and we want to treat him fairly. But what's in the back of my mind is what we're talking about, for instance, mixed use. Then you come up with other issues that the solicitor brought up. And it's in the back of my mind, and I'm confused with a lot of this stuff. I've got a general, but it's the idea of making motions and passing them with different aspects in the totality of the motion. And what potentially we're creating down the road if we do something for others who are similarly situated, who own property in these, maybe there aren't that many, but it just all gives me pause, that's all.
Again, even though I've agreed with Mr. Scowen's comments, I also agree with yours from that perspective, that point of view. So, well, at this point, we do have a motion, so I'll take a roll call vote. Okay. Mr. McDonald? Yes. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Scowen?
No.
Mr. Bush?
yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio? Yes. Mr. Costa? This is without mixed use. Correct, yes. Okay. And the chair also votes yes. So the motion carries
Okay, so,
6-1.
well, now there's a minor land development on the table, which is they're requesting, help me out with this one, a residential unit on the top floor. But you're recommending denial, not denial, you're recommending approval, but without the condition for the mixed-use residential. So your decision probably has to be that it won't comply with zoning because you're not including that mixed-use code in your recommendation to the town council.
Well, they're gonna get more conflict.
It's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
Can I ask, if that's the case, I guess the answer is yes, but I'll ask the question anyways. Is it still necessary to make the motion, given that we've actually implicitly excluded mixed use from the previous motion?
The town council doesn't have to take our recommendation.
Yeah, I would make the motion, and then if the town council approves something different,
Okay.
we can, I'll work with Charles as to coming back. Does that make sense to you?
Okay.
We'll just, you know, I mean, for now, they really kind of have to have a decision that's appealable. But if the council does something different, then we'll work it out.
I'm okay with that. Okay.
So I'm not sure where we're at. So
I
there's,
think you're denying the minor land development project based on your recommendation to approve the zone change without the condition of mixed-use residential.
so moved.
Thank you. I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. DeRosa. Any other discussion? Mr. Costa?
Yeah, what are we voting on? Mr. Speed?
Is this with the mixed use?
No.
No.
So it will not be residential then?
Right.
And this is still 26 grand, right?
Yes, it's the minor land.
Okay, all right,
And then it'll go to the town council and,
right, they can decide.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? I will take a roll call. Mr. McDonald? Yes. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Scown?
No.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio? Yes. Mr. Costa? Yes. And the chair votes yes. Motion carries 6-1.
Do we need to do the special use permit zoning variances?
Glenn just asked me the same thing. So as I said, this is very complicated. What I intend to do is hold off on actually recording the decision until the town council makes a decision. And I'll work with the attorney on what the appropriate filing is, or, you know, because I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know what they're gonna do, the council.
Is counsel for the applicant, you comfortable with that, sir? Okay, all right, thank you.
No more motions.
Not on that one.
Took all three of them, right?
No, so we still have 28 Grand Avenue. So with 28 Grand, there's town council recommendation which the planning department is recommending is inconsistent. Major land development, which the planning department's recommending denial. Zoning variance for the buffer and a special use permit.
So I think starting with the zone change just makes sense, because then your planning review, it's the same thing as the last one.
Okay.
And then we'll hold the decision. If the town council does something different, we'll be back.
So in regards to 28 Grand Avenue, I'll make a motion that we send a recommendation to the town council that the part of the ordinance that deals with 28 Grand Avenue is not consistent with the comprehensive plan for the reasons outlined in Mr. Modica's memo dated June 20th, 2024.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Second by Mr. Bush. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Well, wait a minute, I will take a roll call. Okay? So, Mr. McDonald? Yes. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Scown?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio? Yes. Mr. Costa? Yes. And chair votes yes. Motion carries. 7-0.
So I just talked with counsel for the applicant.
Yep.
And this is a major land development, which means you're at master plan for this, where the other one you were at preliminary. So they've agreed that you're going to deny the master plan at this stage, not handle variances or special use permits. And then if the town council does something differently, they would come back at, well, they would come back at master. We could combine them and then deal with the variances in the special use permit at that time, because what I heard is they might make some changes where they might not need variances anyway. So again, we'll hold off on recording so that, you know, they don't have to appeal, and we'll just wait to see what the council has to say.
Mr. Chairman, in regards to 28 Grand Avenue, I'll make a motion that we deny the application for a major land development based on the finding of facts in Mr. Modica's memo dated June 20th, 2024.
I have a motion by Mr. Butler. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Costa. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Mr. McDonald? Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Scown?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. D'Ambrosio? Yes. Mr. Costa? Yes. And the chair votes yes. The motion carries 7-0. Oh, wait a minute. No, there's no one in the queue. No. Okay. Public comment. Hearing none. Motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Bush, seconded by Mr.